Um, okay, I say you can let everyone in from the waiting room, and we'll give it a minute or two to just give everyone a chance to filter in. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. We're just giving it a minute to let everyone filter in. It's nice to see all of you. Hello and welcome. Gonna give it one more minute. I would invite everyone to feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know what brings you here. If you're interested, captions are available on this meeting if you want to turn them on using show captions at the bottom of your screen. All right, there we go. Okay, I think let's jump in. I'm sure more folks will be filtering in as we go, but that is all good. So, thank you all for joining us for this workshop in our Transforming the Touring Sector series on the value of rest. I think it's possibly the topic that I've been most excited for in this series, and one of the most difficult and complicated topics that I feel has come up in the course of researching and trying out touring methodologies. Um, My name is Kaylee Wood. I am a project manager at Ontario Presents. I'm working on the Slow Touring project, which has been such a joy to work on. The Slow Touring project, the overall project, is about taking inspiration from other slow movements and aiming to transform the touring sector from the way it has been in the past to a version that increases engagement between artists and the places that they're visiting, increasing artists and presenters' capacity to take risks, especially creative risks. We want to improve artists' well-being, the well-being of all arts workers, the financial viability of touring, and of course, the climate impact of touring as well. Um, this project has been going on for the past couple of years, and over the past year, we've been doing pilot projects, um, which I'll tell you a little bit about later. But the second piece of this has been education, which is why we're doing this series. Before I jump in and introduce everybody, I just want to take a moment to go over what I have been calling the community agreement, which is this is based on the agreement we have for our internal slow touring meetings. And I hope you'll all agree to it. But if you have any requests or questions or additional things you'd like to add to the agreement, please feel free to throw that in the chat. So I'll go over this quickly. I would encourage you to change your Zoom name to your name and your pronouns if you're comfortable sharing, and your organization if that's relevant as well. That can be very helpful. You can have your cameras on or off, whatever's comfortable for you. We welcome you to eat, move around, and take breaks during this workshop, as always, but especially because we're talking about rest today. And I really want to encourage you all to take care of your bodies and yourselves first. For this workshop, we absolutely welcome communication throughout. during the speakers, feel free to communicate through the chat, through emojis, and then there will also be time for questions and comments, which you're welcome to speak out loud during that section. We try to operate with a no judgment zone, meaning there can be disagreements, there can be mistakes, we can use the wrong language sometimes, but as long as intentions are good, we accept one another. Automatic captioning is available for this, so you can turn that on under I think it's captions on at the bottom of your screen, and it might be under the three dots symbol. And finally, and we're recording this workshop. The video will be shared via email with everyone who registered for the workshop after the fact. So if you're not comfortable being on video, we understand. You can keep your camera off. And finally, we will take a short 5-minute break halfway through around 2 p.m. Just as a little bit of a bio break. So I will stop my share. And the first thing I'm going to do is turn it over to Veronica Johnny. Veronica has been a participant in our slow touring pilot projects from the past year. And in fact, tomorrow we're going to be releasing the short video about her slow touring project. So later on, I'll share the link to Ontario Presents YouTube so you can check that out tomorrow. But in general, Veronica is an amazing musician, rock performer, educator. I'm sure she'll share her links in the chat as well if you want to follow up with her. But for today, she is going to be helping us start off this meeting in a good way. So welcome, Veronica.
Nanaskamun, my friends, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much for this moment and this time. Veronica Johnny and Sikesan Nia Nehiao Esqueo. Tanse, bonjour, Ani, Tawao. Welcome. Hello and welcome. My name is Veronica Johnny. I identify as Cree Dene mixed two-spirit multidisciplinary artist, born and raised in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, Tabacha Denende, as we say in our languages. I am coming to you from Manitoulin Island, and I'd like to acknowledge the keepers of the land and the stewards of this land since time immemorial, including, I want to acknowledge the Anishinaabe, the Michi Métis, and the Agdawa nations. I'm here to talk today about rest, in particularly having to do with the music industry and the arts industry, and how we can incorporate some of that rest into our daily practice. And so a lot of the work that I seem to be doing lately in spaces, not just in musical spaces, but many spaces, is about creating boundaries, specifically around our health. And also giving gratitude is also one of the biggest things that I find that can help us in our daily life. So I want to first of all, as a residential school survivor as well, I went to Bumpus Hall in Fort Simpson, Northwest Territories, and as part of my Cree revitalization work, I would like to read a prayer in Cree that I will translate. And for those of you that do pray, I ask you for you to pray in your way and connect into the way you do that. And also, if you don't pray, then maybe if you could just think of the kind of future you want to see for yourself and your loved ones and for all of life. It'd be just wonderful if you can include the earth in your prayer or in your good vibes that you're going to send out. Mamau, Dawimau, Father of everything. Ginanaskamtanan, Asamina, Anuch Kagisigaw. We thank you greatly again this day. Ginanaskamtanan, Bimatsuin, Imiak. We thank you for giving us life. Ginanaskamtanan, Sagihituin, Imiak. We thank you for giving us love. Wichihinan, Kamiawao, Wichi Duyak. Help us have good relations. Saweminan Gakyo, bless us all. Watch over all of us. Ganaweminan Gakyo, Isagihitak, Ai. We love you. Thank you. We are very thankful. Kinanas kamtenan. Kinanas kamtenan. Kinanas kamtenan. Kinanas kamtenan. We are very grateful. So, as part of in preparation, I referred to one of the books that I have. And in this book on this day, it talks about um, making change in our lives. And so that's what we're here today is we're trying to change the music industry to be more slow as part of slow touring. And so what this said is when we want to make a relatively minor change in our lives, we can perhaps appropriately focus on our attitudes and behaviors. I've been doing that for a while. But if we want to make significant quantum change, we need to work on our basic paradigms. So I had to look that word up. What's a paradigm? I knew what it was, but I wanted to make sure I got it right. So a paradigm is like a way of understanding something, the widely accepted way of thinking about or understanding something. And so I think that's really what we're trying to do today is to shift that paradigm, both within our hearts and our bodies and minds, but also in the industries and the people who book us and everyone that we interact with. And so, having said that, I really would like to ask for the help from the universe for all of us to make sure that we can learn how to care for ourselves better, ensure that we get better rest, and ensure that that we can that rest will help us show up to do our art better, whatever that art form is. So instead of singing today, because we couldn't get the sound quite working for my drum, I usually would open with a hand drum song. I would like instead to do just a short breathing exercise with all of you. This is something that you will probably already know about, and maybe you already do. And so, but let's just do it together. Let's ground in to Mother Earth, who provides everything for us. Let's ground into those four elements. So we're going to be grounding into the earth. We're going to be grounding into the water. We're going to be grounding into the air. We're going to be grounding into the sacred fire that sits at the center of Mother Earth. So let's, if you can, sit up, just sit up nice and tall and connect your energy to the earth. And we'll do that through 4 breaths, and then I'll pass it back to you, Kaylee. So let's take a nice deep breath in, as deep as breathe as deeply as you can into your belly, into your breath. And then out again. And as we do this, deep breath in again. And release. I want you to, in your mind, connect your spine and your body and all of yourself to those elements. So again, keep breathing in. And then out. And last one, nice deep breath in. And breathe normally. I wish I could have shared a little bit more, including a song, but I hope that what I have shared with you is going to help you and carry you through this day and through this week and through this month and through this year, and to connect to that breath whenever you need to. And I'm very grateful for being here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Hi, and Askamon.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you so much for being here with us. And as always, really appreciate you sharing your language with us and your thoughts and experiences. I'm also sorry that we couldn't get the sound to work. I encourage everyone to look up Veronica if you haven't before, and maybe you'll get a chance to hear her sing and perform in the future. I also really appreciate that grounding, Veronica. It's such even a small example of the way that we can shift away from urgency culture in our meetings and our gatherings and our work. So, what a perfect way to start off this workshop. Now, I am going to bring us to our first speakers for the workshop. Um, Erin and Maxime are also participants in the slow touring pilot projects from the last year. They've been undertaking a big slow tour, partly with the support of Ontario Presents and partly through their own initiative. And I just am really admiring of all the slow touring work they've been doing. They are circus performers, coaches, choreographers, producers, accessibility consultants, and workshop facilitators. They advocate for disability-led art and accessibility, and I think they are wonderful examples in this area. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Erin and Maxim, to introduce yourselves further and talk about rest. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maxim. I will just share this slide shortly, so it's going to pop up.
Thank you to Kaylee and Ontario Presents for inviting us to share. And thank you, Veronica, for opening this session and for the grounding. Today, Maxim and I are on the unceded land of the Chumash people. I'm Erin. My pronouns are Zizer or just Erin. I'm a white double below knee amputee, and I am a feminine presenting agender person. Today I am wearing leg earrings of a white Barbie made by me so that when strangers ask me where my feet are, I can direct them to my ears.
Again, I'm Maxim. My pronouns are they, them. I am a white, transgender, non-binary human. I'm a joyful, autistic plus human who experiences chronic pain and tics and is a part-time mobility device user. Today I'm wearing legs earring, not legs necklace of a white Barbie that has different sizes of the legs. And it was made by Erin, who is my partner in life and at work. And not only does it remind me of Erin, but also Erin's legs are different sizes. So it is a functional aspects as well. When we are in shows, it helps me remember which legs to give Erin when we are switching. So that's who I am in a little blurb.
And the image on this slide is an epic sunrise from our slow tour.
We'll share briefly about how we were working prior to slow touring and what it's like for us now. So before slow touring, everything was so fast. It was hard to remember experiences. We would come back from touring, burn out, and ask each other what just happened. Content notice, there will be mention of ableism over the next few minutes. End of thought for me.
When we were still pushing through urgency culture, we were in constant overwhelm. We were always exhausted and rarely had the time or capacity to appreciate the people we were meeting and the places that we were visiting. We would also often end up in situations that were not accessible for us, and we were much more prone to cancel. We would say yes to everything. We were living with a scarcity mindset, and this would often lead us to overbook ourselves, fly a lot, and take on projects that were not really in alignment or accessible for us.
Flying often, so airports are not accessible for us. We always book assistance in advance for 2 wheelchairs to navigate airports, and it is never a surprise to us to have to advocate to get the wheelchair services we booked and to have to wait hours for the airline to find one person that then has to push both of us. We found a trick where we do a wheelchair train. The person assisting pushes me, and then I push Erin in front of me, and we make a little train. In addition to airports being an environment that is extremely overwhelming, we would land and spend all of our energy to find specific sustenance, to find aerial circus training spaces, which was often not possible, to find laundry facilities, to figure out transportation to get places that are labeled by presenters as quote unquote walking distance, and then to realize that the existing booked accommodation either does not have the needed bathtub that Erin requires or has stairs to get to it. We would then often be expected to work the next day and attend additional events that require socializing at locations that are often not accessible with either a multitude of stairs to get to or intense lighting and sounds. End of thought for me.
This was not sustainable and would take all of our capacity and often a lot of recovery time. Places are not familiar, and often we are not given access notes about the venues. This would require us to do a lot of searching and preparing prior to projects and during our time there. A lot of projects were completely out of alignment, and given that we were always exhausted, this was a combination that led to a lot of canceling. And just as a side note, to be clear, we are very pro canceling when needed. It was just happening a lot more than it is now. And the image, there are graphics. The first is a stopwatch and an hourglass timer that is close to empty. The second is several batteries from empty to full. And the third is an emoji of a melting smiley face. And for the next slide, content notice, there will be mention of food and a photo of food.
Slow touring has been much more sustainable for both of us and for the environment. So much so that we have been slow touring since June 2024. End of thought for me.
We have had more space to consider our environmental impact. Slow touring allows us to invest in local businesses and farmers and to be more intentional about where our money is going. It also allows us to cook more since we have more capacity. We are even figuring out how to grow greens on the road thanks to the support of Ontario Presents. We also strive to not buy anything unless absolutely necessary and to buy used or upcycle whenever possible. We are now attempting to only fly once a year and only if necessary. Before slow touring, it was often several times per month, if not more. End of thought.
Access while slow touring, so driving, we set our schedule 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off, and ideally no more than 3 to 4 hours of driving a day, separated between the two of us. This allows us to take movement breaks, food breaks, and to stop to appreciate the landscape. We do have to search and prepare, but it is not overwhelming in the same way as before. If we need to stop, we stop. Also, access-wise, we have our trailer now, a teardrop trailer. We bring our tiny home on wheels with us. It has all that we need access-wise. It allows us to stay places longer, and it brings familiarity with us as we navigate new places. End of thought for me.
Slow touring has allowed us to have more time to build lasting relationships with people who are in alignment. We meet a lot of nomadic people on our travels, and we strive to be intentional with the communities we engage with. Because our access needs are typically met now, we cancel less. And if we do need to shift, we try to postpone or shift to online options as opposed to always canceling. Slow touring has allowed us to shift our mindset and to prioritize working with people who are in alignment and to be open for unexpected opportunities to come our way. For example, we were driving across so-called Canada and we stopped at FlyFit in Regina, which is an aerial circus studio. And we stopped just to get some movement in. While we were there, we connected with people from the studio and they expressed an interest in having us come back and share courses and performances. So when we were driving back east, we had the opportunity to stop there for 2 weeks. And this resulted in multiple connections and building lasting relationships. End of thought for me.
Slow touring allows us to tune in with the weather and seasons. This has its planning challenges, of course, but it is also very fulfilling. This winter, we drove south and spent more time hibernating to write applications and plan for the year ahead, as opposed to flying all over for shows. We also followed weather changes. For example, at one point we had planned to drive north, but there was a cold front, so we trusted our instincts and went south instead, which allowed us to make strong, unexpected connections that we would not have had the opportunities to make otherwise. Image, I am smiling with numerous local fresh food items like fruit and salsa from a farm we stayed at. End of thought for me.
And we'll share a few more examples and photos. So the image on this slide is a photo surrounded by large granite rocks, several stories high. Maxime and I are in the air on a swing set-like structure wrapped in red strands of fabric that cascade from the top of the structure to the ground. This structure allows us to continue to work on our art while traveling. It also creates connections, like a friend we made who sits on the rocks and watches. See?
Image, a collage of 4 photos that shares some of the ways that we exist while slow touring. Number 1, Erin driving with a sunset in the background, a smile on their face. 2, our tiny teardrop trailer home, the perfect nest with a pull-up bar on the roof rack. Erin's prostheses are outside the door. 3, a shower tent. Showers are often not accessible for Erin, and with our shower setup and this tent, we have made it accessible. 4, I use a small manual washing machine that does not require electricity and is very helpful while on the road. There will be a fire arts photo in the next slide. And a thought for me.
Among many other examples that we don't have time to share today, we prioritize the following for our performances: striving to respect access needs, creating backup plans, and modeling crip time, which was coined by Alison Coffer and is basically the idea that disabled bodies and minds cannot conform to capitalist standard time, arguably all bodies and minds. I'll pass it on to you.
So, in order to resist urgency culture and performing arts and to respect our access needs and those of who we work with, we prioritize check-ins and strive to navigate conflicting access needs. Examples of respecting our own access needs, for example, not socializing during breaks, taking naps, rescheduling, joining online instead of in person, delegating tasks, having backup plans, and so much more. Every human being has access needs. Disabled people's access needs tend to be outside of the standards as there are often more barriers and the world was not built with us in mind. Also, there are sounds here of birds in the background that are screaming at each other. I don't know if it's coming through, but it is distracting my brain a little bit. So I will end my thought here and pass it on to Erin.
Creating backup plans. So one example, we worked with an artist whose needs to attend in person fluctuated from day to day. So we created options in collaboration. They could perform with us in person or digitally via a pre-recorded projected video. We also build backup plans into our aerial routines and the creative descriptions of them, so that depending on pain levels, we can make appropriate choices in the moment about which skills to perform. For example, in one act, our pre-recorded descriptions say, and it's me saying it, I will move with or without you on the floor or in the air. This allows us to go with our current needs in the moment. We also shifted an in-person performance when an artist was injured, but still wanted to perform. So they performed online on a large screen TV. This gave us the idea in the future to explore putting the TV in the air. End of thought.
I'm just mindful of time. So for modeling crip time, we can definitely give more examples in the Q&A if people are interested to know more about this. And we will put our contact information.
Image.
Oh, thank you. Image description. 2 white double baloney amputees lie on their backs with their legs and hips up. They each join one lower leg together and a flame from fire bubbles rises from their legs.
And just a side note, this was an art that we unexpectedly got to learn while slow touring and connect with Chloe, who is in the photo. End of thought.
And our contact, so through Instagram, our collective intercomplementary journeys, or our individual Instagrams, Erin Ball Circus, or Max _ outside _ the _ box, and then email intercomplementaryjourneys@proton.me, and we welcome feedback and questions. End of thought.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin and Maxime. It was so great to hear about. You really fit a lot of different ways of tackling slowness and resisting urgency culture into your slow tour. From the food, from to the way that you're traveling, to the way you're interacting with presenters and building relationships, the climate aspect, respecting your own access needs. I really love that you shared that you've had to cancel less, which I think is an interesting manifestation of slow touring, that in the end, actually, it allowed you to do more in a way. And I think that's something that we all need to remember. Um, that, I mean, there's inherent value to slowness and rest no matter what. It doesn't need to make us more productive, but I think it is a good argument to make as well, that we can end up doing more when we're really taking care of ourselves. So thank you. And yes, we will have a question and discussion section later in the workshop. So if you have questions or thoughts for Erin and Maxime, please feel free to hold on to that and we'll come back around. But now I am going to move us to our second speaker for today, and that is Nova Bhattacharya. Nova is an award-winning artist, cultural innovator, and unapologetic trailblazer based in Toronto, here where I am as well. Nova, I've had the pleasure of working with you in the past, and I'm so happy that you're here to share a little bit about your work in the area of rest. So I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself further and to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. I'm going to start us off with a little ritual, and thank you, Veronica, for grounding us all at the beginning. That was so helpful. And now I'll ask you either to join me or just close your eyes and listen, but just take a moment to connect to yourself, excuse me, to the earth, and to those around us. Heart, an organ that starts beating before we are even born. Sound, sound that we make with our watery electric bodies. Circles, circles in our wrists, in our neck, in our shoulders, in our eyes. Circles that have so much significance in so many cultures. Reach, reaching away, reaching towards, reaching beyond, reaching within. Reach. Reach for Mother Earth, whether that's with your feet that are already connected to her, whether it's with whatever surface that you are sitting on that connects your body to the earth in whatever way is available to you, whether it's breathing through your heart and out in the direction of Mother Earth. How do you connect yourself to Mother Earth today, and what does it mean to think about the earth as a mother? Her body covered in oceans and the jewels of nature. Her body covered in the concrete scabs of human existence. Forgiveness, whatever that means for you today. With your hands or your spirit above your head, acknowledge the universe, ancestors, and our journeys that bring us to the land that we stand on today, our journeys that bring us to the land that we exist on today. And finally, a return to the heart, the organ that starts beating before we are born, the heartbeat that connects us all. So this ritual is inspired by my practice that originated in Indian classical dance and then expanded as I became a practicing artist and kept meeting people who believe in these same basic essential facts, that if we are connected to ourselves, if we are connected to each other, if we are connected to the world that we are inhabiting and creating together and can be our best selves, then we can contribute best to the world. And we are in a group of people who contribute to the world either by making art or making artistic experiences for people possible. So when Kaylee contacted me about being a part of this conversation, it was partly because she'd heard of different ways that I had been incorporating rest and reflection into the activities of my company, Nova Dance. And you know, this ritual that I started with, we know that rituals create lasting change, and that repeated emotional, cognitive, physical actions can help us be agile and conserve energy and flourish. And we know that rituals provide psychological safety and enable emotional risk taking. So these are things that as a choreographer, I need to have happening for my choreography. I need the dancers to feel comfortable and at home in their bodies, and I need them ready to take the risk of trying something they haven't done before. And I need them to feel safe. So then taking the ideas of how art making works and how keeping everybody safe and engaged, and also, you know, safe is one of these double-edged sword words, I think sometimes. Yes, we want safety, and also we want the ability to be fearless and take risks. So trying to take all these things and then put them into how a company is being made is an interesting process. And by bringing rituals into that process, it does slow things down. It takes longer to have a meeting if you're going to insist on having a ritual at the beginning of it. We also, checking in is something that takes time. So all of these things feed into the idea of rest and the value it has. And for me, when I was talking to Kaylee, like, I felt like a lot of it has been re-inspired and reinvigorated by the pandemic, and also a realization that a lot of the things that I bring to this kind of thinking and this kind of programming has to do with the fact that I personally, individually, had a period of 10 years in my life when I was suffering from extreme chronic migraine. So I was constantly in very, very high levels of pain and trying to manage my output and advocating for myself, whether it was when I had a theater gig or a dance gig, being able to, you know, not be shy about showing up at a gig with a sleeping bag and just curling up in a ball until the absolute moment that I had to be backstage for the 5-minute call. All those kinds of things also fed into the fact that when 5 years ago the pandemic was declared and lockdown happened, there was this little thing in my brain that just went, 2 years, I can do this for 2 years. And I feel like that came from having lived through chronic pain and knowing what limitations and isolation and even having to manage screen time as we all switched to Zoom, how those things all were going to come together. So during the pandemic, many online conversations were happening, and certainly in communities of marginalized folks, we were talking about rest as resistance. And we were also talking about starting with a done list of really taking the time to acknowledge things that had been hard won, taking the time to recognize and reflect on things that had moved and shifted through years and years of work, and also knowing that some of that work will never stop and will never change. So rest programming, a couple of different things have happened at Nova Dance. We had a student from the Canadian Institute of Arts Therapy doing her practicum with us. And through this, we provided several hours of arts therapy to both company dancers, company artists, as well as our extended family of board members and audience members. So there was 186 hours of psychotherapy for dance artists. There were 36 hours of therapeutic creative studio time. There was leadership reflections, and we also began to develop rest programming. And Rachel Robbins, who's the student I was talking about, introduced the work of Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith, which is about the 7 kinds of rest. So we also had programming that touched on the 7 kinds of rest, which are physical, mental, sensory, creative, emotional, spiritual, and social. So the just even acknowledging and naming that those different kinds of rest exist and how they impact our ability to make work was quite pivotal for any of the artists who participated in that programming. I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to read you a quote from Tricia Hersey. Rest is Resistance, a manifesto, founder of the NAP Ministry. Rest is radical because it disrupts the lie that we are not doing enough. It shouts, no, that is a lie. I am enough. I am worthy now and always because I am here. I think the most important thing I want to say about rest is that it is important and we can't make art without it. And it really feels right now that we, as a community of people who value the arts and are trying to continue to find ways to connect other human beings to the value of the arts, despite the challenges of our time, like we have to get our messaging in sync. And if the messaging to the humans is you need art, art is valuable, art is the thing that is going to make you feel actualized and like you're fully contributing and art makes the world a better place, then we can't be walking around looking like we've had every ounce of energy wrung out of us. And I know that that's really challenging in our sector, whether it's being artists and constantly applying for grants and dealing with rejection and trying to make our art and trying to make change for our communities, you know, all those things. For presenters, you know, we know that your funding isn't getting any better. And so all those things that we're constantly dealing with, it's hard. And also, we're the ones who are making the art, so we have to find a way to really embody what we're saying. And that has been the impetus for the various different rest and reflection programs that have been happening. As I mentioned, the practicum student and being really specific about mental health and mental rest, and also giving access to artists to consider rest in a spectrum of ways. Also, for a dance company, I've been really working with this idea of resting in repertoire. So yes, creation is exciting and exhilarating, and making new work is always something an artist is excited about, and also resting in the existing work. And for dancers, this can mean many things. It means they're getting the opportunity to steep in a vocabulary instead of just constantly having to make new things. They're lingering in the material. Then for a company, it means you're being able to go back to work that you've already invested significant resources in, and also to learn from your own trajectory of going back and going, oh, when I was young, I thought I needed to say this way, but now I can sift out some of this unnecessary material. And I think all of this, I'm just still trying to come back to the idea that, actually, this is, Kaylee, I'm going to sort of pull you back into this a little bit when we were talking about this slow touring project that's happening. And it was so great to hear from about how the slow touring project is enabling change. And also there's like this certain element of how the change itself is on this super slow trajectory, and maybe that we could turn the flame up on a little bit, just because things like when I'm talking about repertoire and resting in repertoire, I also know that on the touring circuits, so often the things that when we're being asked to apply to pitch, it's always about new work, new work, new work. And so I would love to see that language shifting sometime, and an acknowledgement that existing work and going back to it has a lot to offer. And timelines as well. Like, I do feel like there's this one circle where we're talking about slowing it down, and we're talking about how much benefit there can be from shifting our approach. And then it also feels like certain things are just continuing the way they always did. So I'm hoping that these conversations can push for that to shift a little bit more. And the other thing that REST programming has enabled is bringing in, even for a dance company, we're bringing in different arts practices, visual arts, painting, and also beadwork. We had Justine Woods in teaching us Métis beadwork. And through these small acts of reconciliation, by engaging an Indigenous artist inside our organization, we have the opportunity to consider First Nations cultures, and the fact that beadwork is not just about making, that it's about engaging in community building, and that it's a practice of patience and connection and humility, and finding ways to continue to incorporate rest as resistance into the way that we're working feels like it can keep us grounded into the future. And I think that's where I will leave it. And we can also discuss more at Q&A.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Nova, for sharing all of that. I feel like you've been weaving these themes into your work for a long time, and it's great for us to be able to learn from that. And I do appreciate, sort of the mini call out to our sector, which we've talked a lot post-pandemic, about the new normal and what are we taking from the learnings that we had. And it kind of feels like in a lot of ways we're doing a revert back to how things were. And yes, I agree. I would really love to see that change. I'm currently working on my proposal for next year's slow touring project. So if anyone is feeling like you have questions or things that you'd be interested to see Ontario Presents working on, I'm always available. I'll put my email in the chat. I think what we're going to do, Seeley, if you're okay with it, we're going to take our 5-minute break first. Okay, fabulous. So I am very excited to have Seeley Quest speak next, and we're going to hear from here after the break. But let's take a 5-minute break, bio break, do whatever you need, take a breather. I always tell people in these breaks, you don't have to check your email. You can just listen to your body and do what you need internally first. But I will see you all at 2 o'clock. Thank you. I think we had someone just join, so just letting you know we're on our 5-minute break and we are coming back at 2 o'clock for our next speaker. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It is 2, so I will gently call you all back to our workshop. And I'm going to dive in and introduce our third, or rather fourth speaker, Seeley Quest. Seeley is a trans disabled environmentalist, artist, and equity educator who I've had the pleasure to meet through these slow touring workshops. So a fun connection that was made from this project, which I always appreciate. And Seeley, I'm just going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and share about your relationship to rest. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kaylee, and everybody who's here. Let's see. Well, yeah, introduce myself a bit. I'm a white trans person with short, multicolored auburn and silver hair. I have some facial hair scruff. Um, wearing a green t-shirt and in a space with some sunlight coming in from one direction, and just ephemera around the backdrop of the room. I have not been in Ontario specifically that long. It's less than 6 months for me so far, but I have been exploring work in performing arts in Canada for almost 8 years, and before that, I am originally from the US. I was based in the San Francisco Bay Area over 16 years, and a good bit of my, well, I would say my longest ensemble affiliation work ended up being with um, Sins Invalid. So starting as a one-off um, performance, live performance project, and eventually growing into offering education and uh, a very political um, advocacy sort of role uh, besides our live performance work as well. And anyway, I was actively in the sort of core of folks involved with Sins and Ballads work from 2007 till 2015 when I left California. So for a little introduction, since that project has it was begun by people experiencing physical disability and who also happen to be um, people of color uh, and with a significant amount of queer community connection and relationship to gender nonconformity as well. So really trying to uplift and share more of the work of folks from those perspectives has been a lot of its key work, and uh, I can share, excuse me, a bit of experience um, that I had from in the context with this group, as well as, thank you, Kaylee already did put in a link for more info about SINS as an organization. But as well, some of my, things that I'm noticing more in the field here in the local context too. So, excuse me, speaking of rest and taking care, I'm going to have a moment to hydrate. Okay. So, yeah, Sins Invalid being a project, again, led by disabled people and sharing our work, we were still, uh, it doesn't mean an immunity to feeling the pressure of, okay, we've promised to have the show on this particular weekend. Uh, we got to a point for the 2000, I'll put it this way, we had plans for a 2010 show after making a pattern of annual work from 2006 to 2009. And the artistic director, who was really remains critical in um, directing each annual show as well as all the other organizational activities, um, ended up confronting an experience of enough illness, like beyond the kind of base level of daily disability access concerns to navigate, such that we all had to have some conversations in the ensemble, like, okay, how should we proceed? Uh, is it actually possible um, to summon the energy and the resources from whichever directions to have you know, our scheduled show on at such and such a time? And to also fill in, it was not just a question of whether the director would, have capacity because of physical circumstances at that time, but it was also, um, were each of the members. We were we were not at, let's say, equally confident places amongst all of us about uh, how to go forward, you know, just several weeks coming up ahead. And even though there had already been um, a good amount of ticket sales, we had audience members who were very, excited for this being, again, pretty rare work offered in the US, who, you know, had been making plans to travel from sometimes cross country to come out to the show. Uh, we did ultimately decide as a group to announce a postponement and, to be further announced when rescheduling would be. So there was a good bit involved with rebooking the venue, or, would this venue even be available again in a desirable timeline? Um, and, you know, communicating with the people who had already bought tickets and so forth. Um, arrangements for rehearsal space, etc. But in the end, um, it was needed, and quite likely because we already had um, a framework that was, you know, like appealed to audiences about recognition of and working, um, not not in denial, not in ignoring our statuses as disabled and also deaf artists, but you know, working very connected to these realities. And so uh, we were lucky that ultimately audiences, critics, etc., everybody connected to the project were able to accept the adjustment along with us. I can also share an example from well, impacting me specifically, uh, there can be really significant consequences for cases of deciding to just keep on pushing and uh, hustling onto uh, thick of a schedule. I did, let me see, so this was two, early 2014. Um, as Sins Invalid kind of grew in, international attention, we would be requested to, could we have artists present outside of the Bay Area? And before the pandemic, there was a lot more expectation of that happening with people traveling on site. So um, I agreed to a gig that was presenting at a college on the East Coast of the US, um, and some workshop as well. The artistic director experiencing more challenge in um, traveling logistics than I did at the time. Would be joining remotely, but I agreed to be basically the on-site company representative who came out, um, was part of featuring for a showcase at the campus and workshop as well, and then um, returning to the Bay Area. So this was a turnaround of 48 hours, pretty quick, but also not unusual for uh, types of things that the folks in the organization were being offered to do on a regular basis. And I thought, okay, I'd like to, uh, you know, go and represent, make a good impression of our work. Um, I'd like the money. Uh, you know, it feels kind of like a bit of a high demand to do that flying back and forth, that fast, but okay. At the same time, I had already committed to uh, participating in a weekend intensive that was trans uh, members to do kind of a somatic study and practice, a very embodied, focused kind of workshop intensive that was starting like immediately following when I would return to the Bay Area. But I thought, okay, I'm I'm committed to both of these. I'm gonna do this. So I did. I flew east, did my thing, flew right back west, and the timing was so tight. I, came with my luggage directly into the workshop space. There was no, um, getting to stop at home in between. So after the end of, the next 2 days of very rich, but also like very demanding, um, you know, constantly kind of stimulating and investigating, where I was somatically in relationship with these other folks in trans community. As soon as I got into my apartment, at the end of that weekend, um, closed the door, and then spontaneously, this was not a conscious choice on my part, but my body just slid down from the door onto the floor and commenced, um, you know, basically having something that looked like a seizure, which had not previously been in my physical, repertoire. Um, this was alarming for me and also my flatmate at the time, and once I, recovered enough, which took actually 2 hours, that, I was having this involuntary kind of like flailing about. Um, I found that like a neurologically related affect had been triggered basically from uh, the amount of just overload, all that I had been trying to process. And this was now, I was now susceptible for like months and months. This ended up, really impacting me for the majority of 2014 going forward. That I had this like a shaking and a trembling and involuntary um, visible affect, you know, when overstimulated by like all kinds of prompts. And which, uh, daily affected then how I was able to present at points of, performing for the public or not. So this is not to say that, you know, all artists are going to be equally at risk for this kind of potential experience, but simply to urge people to consider, the consequences can be really uh, far more impactful sometimes than you might anticipate. And it was only through eventually that I was lucky enough to access some resources to support me going to a very intensive therapeutic process that did make a dedicated space for rest in a certain way, that my this kind of like neurological uh, you motor affect prompt eventually um, subsided for me. So um, I would like to observe also that the the need for rest in the larger culture, uh, not just for the performing arts sector, but certainly here, is, as other featured folks have already referenced, it's it's taking off, and it's a there's a call for this that we really should all be working on how to actually integrate and practice this. I would like to highlight that this in the Toronto area this past year's Summer Works Festival did decide to program a day dedicated in their 11-day fest to work involving ideas of rest, calling it Summer Break. And this was quite well received, and they're planning to schedule in with this kind of theme in the coming this year as well. I will put in a link to the chat for some more info about that. Again, this is not something, only showing up in the Toronto region by any means, but I do think it's worthy that something that's considered to be a bit of a nationally significant um, festival showcase space that uh, they, decided to cherish and give some special attention to that, and as well a bit um, of input from various artists featured in that particular summer break scheduling, as well as people in other streams. Commenting on, let's see, the the value of challenging hustle culture. As well, I would like to offer one further invitation to consider, um, for venues that are thinking about how to let's say, back to an earlier workshop in this session, like ideas of hosting. Um, the the principles of offering relaxed performances are, valuable to consider, not just for on a show by show basis, but um, again, building in some more space for rest for both artists and staff and audiences an ongoing basis is really a beautiful direction for uh, hosting venues to consider. And just to share a particular example from England, the Battersea Arts Center, just before the pandemic emerged globally in early 2020, did decide to start offering all of their programming with kind of a relaxed framework and these features. So anyway, I will let you explore the info they provide further on that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to where our discussion will all go now. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Seeley. You shared so many great examples, and I appreciate there's some vulnerability to it, but um, sharing what impact this urgency culture can have on our bodies. Something we talked about when we met one-on-one was disabled and chronically ill artists or people sort of being canaries in the coal mine, even though sometimes we feel the effects earlier or more severely than other people might of exhaustion and of pushing ourselves. In fact, these are impacts that actually affect everyone, and it will serve us all if we can shift our way of working. And I also appreciate you bringing up the idea of canceling a performance. It's something that's really difficult, and for many people and many organizations is seen as like an unheard of idea to cancel because the show must go on as part of our culture. And so I think it's definitely worth us all thinking about um, having frameworks in place that would allow us to cancel if needed, whether it's something in your contract, whether it's what Erin and Maxime talked about with just having alternative ways and options prepared for how people can participate virtually if needed, or just having the ability to change the choreography based on your access needs that day. I mean, there's so many different ways that this can be tackled, but it's definitely worth having those conversations in preparation. So we are going to enter our discussion and questions portion, and I'm going to invite anyone that's here that has a question to put up your hands and speak or to throw things in the chat. But first, I do want to I'll come to you, Erin and Maxime. I want to come to our three speakers and just say whether you had things that you wanted to respond to or got inspired by from the other speakers first before I open up to everyone. So first, I'll go to Erin and Maxime.
Erin speaking. Nova, thank you for the framework of the 7 types of rest. And going back to existing work and resting in the repertoire were big takeaways as well. Seeley, thank you for sharing practical examples of shifting and prioritizing access and rest and advocating for rescheduling and for sharing your experience of what can happen when we push for urgency culture. We also realized that we forgot to thank the Canada Council for the Arts, and slow touring would not be possible for us without this support, and we are immensely grateful. End of thought.
Thank you both. Yes, the funders are a key piece of this entire conversation. And this has come up at other workshops too. Having the money to slow down is a big, big piece of it. Seeley, it looked like you were going to speak.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to really thank Nova for inviting people just in this space here to be in a mindful and very embodied practice together as well. Veronica leading in that way with this session. And I think, yeah, it's just deeply valuable. So thank you for this. As well, the reflecting on the value of putting into like the design of what we're offering. You know, Erin did speak on it, even at the level of the performance may show up in this way, or it may show up in that way, depending on the conditions of that particular moment. There's already so much practice that people in the industry have had, particularly in the emergence of the pandemic, with needing to develop, okay, if we cannot present, you know, with all of our members on site together in such a way, you know, let's develop our alternate plan. How do we proceed if health conditions call for something else? And there's already that basic practice, and so I think we can build that further. I love that Erin and Maxime are already actively doing so, and yeah, thank you for adding that note.
Nova, you don't have to speak, but I want to give you the chance if you have any reflections to add.
I will. I want to thank Erin and Maxime and Seeley for just that really tangible reminder of how much of this work is the courage of the artist to advocate not only for self and also for larger awareness. And I'm reminded Rebecca Singh, who's an audio describer that we've worked with. She will always say that accessibility can happen one person at a time, and that's really important for us all to remember, that all the things that we're trying to do, if we can do them with integrity and compassion, even for one person, then we are making a difference, and to focus on that. And then just Kaylee, because what you were talking about with the cancellation, and I do appreciate and respect that. And also, I was in a situation once where it was a duet program, and the person I was to be performing with, her partner passed away. And it seemed like such an absolute no-brainer that we would, in fact, postpone or cancel the show. And it was a show in a smaller town in Ontario. But this performer took the position. She just said, so many people worked so hard for this show to happen, and that this thing has happened in my life was a given that this was going to happen. So I don't want to now undo the work of all these people in this community. And I was blown away that she was taking that approach. And also it was like one of those things of, there's always a different way of looking at it. And as long as we do it in the way that feels right for all the people involved, then we can feel good about ourselves and what we're doing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think something that I've learned a lot from, especially from our colleagues here, access and accessibility really is an individual thing. And so the best thing any of us can do to make our work more accessible is to just work with people's individual needs and not have a boilerplate way, but to say, okay, that person had a specific way that they wanted to handle that experience, and you couldn't have assumed what it was going to be. So I think that's a great example of the individual needs. I'm going to open it up. Veronica, over to you.
Thank you, Kaylee. I just want to thank everyone for everything that we shared. I learned so much, and just the heart in this group of people is just it's really powerful. And you know, I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for always being included in these gatherings. And you know, my granny, if I can just share one teaching that my granny always used to say is that everybody has their own way. And so really embracing that as a way forward, and embracing, yeah, that one size does not fit all, and that we can learn from each other. And I love to also just, you know, the rules of the, like when we first started, Kaylee, you reminded us of the space, and just to be quick for forgiveness if someone um, says something. And I'm always grateful for that, because I'm always learning. So thank you all so much, and it's been a pleasure to sit with you.
Thank you, Veronica. It's a pleasure to sit with you. I will open it up now. I mean, I continue to invite all of our speakers to just jump in whenever you want to say or respond to something. And I want to acknowledge that Erin and Maxime have to leave 15 or 10 minutes before 3. So, in particular, if you have questions for the two of them, now's a great time to ask those. And we're losing Veronica. Thank you for being here. But I have been reminded in the past that sometimes you have to sit with an awkward moment of silence for folks to come up with their questions and thoughts. So I'm going to do that. And I welcome you to put questions or responses in the chat, or raise your hand and speak aloud. Oh yeah, Nova, we had a question of whether you could just share that Trisha Hersey quote. Amazing. Thank you. Love it. Well, okay, here we have a question in the chat. If we want to value rest, flexibility, and slowness within the Canadian arts sector, what are the minimum shifts that need to take place? That's a big question. Um, do any of our speakers want to jump in on that? Go ahead, Seeley.
Um, yeah, what I've heard and been seen to some extent from some um, programmers in particular uh, is, uh, you know, we're going to commit that we're presenting, you know, two large works in our season, you know, which is to say, scaling back a bit, and presenting along with that perhaps some additional, you know, workshops, other non-performance focused activities that are specifically engaging audiences around ideas of rest. And I have, the people that I feel like I have friendship with, who are in these, directing roles, making these decisions, are sometimes expressing like nervousness about doing so, in terms of how, being unsure how receptive audiences might be as well when making the case for applying for grants for funding of their seasons in this way. Um, but uh, kind of sticking to that decision and seeing it through, again, I think has been uh, an experiment that these particular presenters feel has been worthwhile and received, um, with understanding and appreciation. So um, I think a minimum way to make change is to, yeah, is to outline we're going to scale back and invest some more resources in how to support ourselves and think through how to, get more richness out of already created repertoire and so forth. End of thought.
How to get more richness out of it. I like that a lot. Erin and Maxime.
Maxime speaking. We have a bunch of things to share, and people can take whatever resonates. A big practice that we have is check-ins, and that,
which was mentioned.
yeah, and that includes access check-in because everyone has access need. And so we really model using check-ins in everything that we do, including with each other every day. Um, and so to figure out flexibility and conflicting access needs, especially when working with multiple people. Uh, Again, I think it was already mentioned, but fostering relaxed environments. And so encouraging people to show up as their authentic self, move around, make noise,
Take naps.
take breaks, take naps. Yes, so having welcoming environments where people can respect their own access needs if needed, or ask for what they need. And then what is often overlooked is that people have to do the work around accessibility and around unlearning and learning, and it doesn't just magically happen. So unless people are actively engaged in the community, people probably have to do a lot of learning and unlearning.
Hire consultants.
Yeah, and then another thing which could take finances to do it or not, but it does take time because access takes time. So creating access notes, might it be for events or for venues? And so what do people offer and what do people not offer? So then that make it so that people are met halfway and the labor is not just put on artists or on disabled people to share what their access needs are or audiences. So it's meeting people halfway. Um, Going through our list of things because there's just so many things. But I think that's like the smaller things that could happen if people feel like it's in alignment with them. And flop.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We have another question in the chat building off of that, which is how can I or how do you sell the idea of slow art to funders? I mean, I have some thoughts on this too, but first I'll go to our speakers and see if you have any experience with this. Well, I can share my experience because I've written all the grants for the Slow Touring project. Um, I think that it actually lands really well with funders because if you look at their priorities, we're talking a lot about diversity and equity and inclusion. And slowing down is a huge way of working towards those things. When we talk about inclusion and access for disabled and chronically ill and deaf folks, when we talk about racial and cultural diversity, slowing down gives us time to really acknowledge the different ways that people work, want to work. I think when we go fast, we're more likely to rely on our old patterns and default to the status quo instead of taking the time to think about what shifts we want to be making. So even if we're well-intentioned, when we move fast, we often leave behind all the things we could be doing to be more inclusive in all these different ways. So I would say that's like the number one argument that funders will usually appreciate to hear, that this different way of working is more inclusive. And personally, the climate and sustainability aspect has been huge for me personally. I don't know if it's every funder's priority, but if you're looking at different funders and you're checking out their lists, if that's part of it, slowing down is usually connected to sustainability. And personally, I don't know if this will land for everyone, but I think when we talk about just the viability of artistic projects, a lot of funders are talking about new business models. What are new business models we can have to make it financially sustainable to do this work? And I think you can make an argument that working in a slow way is a new business model that might allow you even to do more, the way Erin and Maxime mentioned before as well. Taking more breaks might mean you have to cancel fewer shows, or it might mean that you can end up impacting more people in different ways. And thanks for sharing that piece with us, Seeley. I'll make sure that goes in our notes as well that we put out. Okay, we have another. Oh, go ahead.
Has just that, those words that we always fall into, and just this thing about trying new business models and financial stability, right? And the oxymoron or the tautologistism that is right now, right? Like my sister works in university healthcare, like she's in an institution, and she's talking about instability in that institution. I have a colleague who works in a dance program at a university, again, an institution, and how institutions are coming under attack. So what I'm getting at is the places that we think have the most stability are also currently dealing with the complete instability in the world. And in the arts, like, the math has never worked. So why are we trying to make it work now? Like, we're the ones who know that the capitalist value isn't ever going to pay off. And we know that the value of art and its quote unquote intangibleness is what has the most power to shift things right now. So I just feel like, in the same way that having a slow touring project and having artists at the forefront who are pushing for that change is important, like, we all just have to keep shifting that language and pushing for that. And I think we have to really, like, we all survived the pandemic because of the adaptability that working in the art sector gives us. And yes, we might be battered and collateral damaged out of the pandemic, and also we have the energy and the will and the inspiration to continue to do what we're doing. I don't know if I lost the plot on that, but somewhere in there.
Not at all, no, but that was fantastic and a great reminder. Ultimately, sometimes we're writing these grants and we're trying to make, the fiscal argument, but ultimately our work is outside of capitalism, and you're absolutely right. It's never going to add up because it's not meant to. Before I move on, I know Erin and Maxime, you have to head out, so I just want to give you a chance if there's anything remaining you want to say. You also don't have to speak.
Erin speaking. We were just typing a response to the question of clauses that need to be included in performance contracts for slow touring / placing greater value on rest. And we were responding that access and ethics riders can be helpful either prior to or even as part of contracts, since everyone's needs will be different. And some clauses could include flexibility and adding in more time. We've started adding in 4 times as much time as we think we need.
So, for example, if people are signing contracts and they're flying us in, and then there's a performance, and then flying us out, then we have conversation and extend the time and kind of like have conversation around flying in, and then we need a recovery day, and then we need a rehearsal, and then we need tech, and we can't do tech, dress, and show in the same day. So tech, dress, a day of recovery, show, a day of recovery, and then flying out. And so it's really like building in flexibility within those contracts, and kind of like an understanding of what people can offer. And then there was another question around funders. I think it's yes. So how can we sell the idea of slow art to funders? So for us, it's been by modeling what we do in slow touring and slowness and access. And often just by modeling, people realize, oh, this also applies to me, or I can do this in a way that works for me. And also highlighting for funders what is working and what is actually benefiting beyond just us or beyond the disability community. It really benefits as many people as possible. I just have a quick example in mind. So for example, someone wanted us to teach at their festival, but we realized that the schedule would not respect our access needs as presented. So we let the producers know why it wasn't feeling in alignment at that time. And they took the time to reflect and reframed our schedule with less hours and a day off in the middle of the week to rest. And this ended up being so appreciated by the attendees of our course that this year the producers are bringing us back and they're reframing their entire festival to allow for all attendees and teachers to take a rest day in the middle of the festival week if they wish to do so. And so by modeling and by realizing that, oh, this is a successful practice and something that is long lasting for everyone and more sustainable, then it really encourages people to fund it and to really practice incorporating it. End of thought.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to everyone for being part of the conversation.
Thank you both so much for being here and for all of your work. It's fantastic. And yes, that example that Erin and Maxim just shared about modeling, sometimes it's hard for artists to take the leap. It requires some bravery because you don't know if the presenter you're working with is going to say, well, we don't want to work with you again if you're difficult to work with. Obviously, heavy quotes around difficult, but the idea that in fact it sets a great example and many people will respond well to it, I think is really positive and inspiring that we can start to put this in motion and more people will see that it's an effective way of working. I don't know if either Nova or Seeley want to respond any further to this what types of clauses need to be included in performance contracts for slow touring / placing greater value on rest. I think we've already brought up accessibility riders, which I think is just a really key thing that we should all expect to see more of and make use of. Seeley?
Yeah, I would just underline that I think there is useful phrasing to refer to from the kind of provisional, you know, Plan B sorts of clauses that people were creating, especially in the earlier pandemic period around, okay, we may need to budget in extra time or particular resources to um, take the presentation this direction, depending on, you know, health protocols of the moment. Um, I think that there's a lot to draw on there, and would encourage us to, yeah, look for examples, if not from your own history. Yeah, I think people across the field will be able to share some.
Great point. I mean, I looked at so many contracts during the pandemic that just had to outline what happens if we cancel? How much does the artist get paid? What percentage, perhaps? What date do we need to make the decision by so someone's not flying out and then being canceled on mid-trip? All those kinds of things. There's a lot of examples, you're right. Are there any other questions or comments that anyone would like to share? Well, then perhaps we'll dive into our wrap up. I really appreciate you all being here, and I want to thank Veronica, Erin, Maxime, Nova, and Seeley for sharing your thoughts with us today and for setting a great example in our industry in all of your work. I think it's really having an influence on all of us, so thank you. I wanted to thank the Canada Council for the Arts, as they have funded our entire slow touring project from the past year and upcoming year, and it's allowed us to invest in a lot of these projects and try out slow models. Really appreciate that. We have one workshop left in this series. I will share my screen to tell you about it. This is the rescheduled workshop, so in fact the date hasn't been confirmed yet, but it's going to be around this time in April. Arts centers as community spaces. I mean, we've talked a lot about community engagement at Ontario Presents, and I think we want to see that continue to grow. It's a way of increasing the impact of presenters' work. So we're going to talk about what strategies and examples are out there for being more than just a proscenium theater that turns its lights on for a show and then closes up afterwards. What other ways can community arts centers be community spaces? The one other thing, trying to make sure I share everything. I also want to let you know that I'm going to be hosting a series of in-person meetups related to slow touring in April, May, and June. So I'm going to email this email list with those dates. The locations of the meetups are Ottawa, Belleville, either Guelph or Brantford, and one in Toronto. If anyone's interested in joining in person and just talking about these ideas over lunch and over a couple of hours gathering, I will extend the invite to all of you if you're in Ontario and able to join those. I am also putting together a proposal for more workshops for next year, so I will let you know what comes of that and what other virtual opportunities we have as well. And finally, we are putting out this video series highlighting all of the slow touring projects that have been a part of this program in the past year, including For Veronica's project and Erin and Maxime's project. Those are the two videos that we've already created, and there's many more to come. So you can find those on our YouTube, and if you want to get notified when there's new videos in that series, you can join our newsletter mailing list, which is 1 to 2 newsletters a month, and I've just put that link in the chat. Finally, I will also put my email in the chat in case anyone has questions or wants to reach out or wants to chat. I mean, these are my favorite topics, so I'm always down to chat about them. On that note, I will let you all go into your hopefully sunny Monday. Mine's sunny anyway. And I wish you a wonderful spring.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Diana. I just put that person in the waiting room because I don't know what they were doing. So.
Yeah.
All right. Hi.
Interesting. Hi.
Yeah, how was it?
It was very informative. I'm glad that it was not that there was anything wrong with like slide decks, but it was just more conversational because the topic also seems very low key in the sense of like energy usage. So
That's true.
yeah, no, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you're right. I think it was a good topic to just like chat informally about. And, it's not something that needs like, here's the ABC points of how to do it. It's just something that we all have a different relationship to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like people were responding well, so that's good.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Questions.
so how are you? Do you want to just do like our check-in real quick right now? Do you need a breather?
No, we could do it. Let me stop